Hi friends, welcome to this latest episode of the Nationalist View, and today we have with us a very special guest, Dr. Sriparna Pathak. Dr. Pathak, thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you, Arunji, for having me here. It's always wonderful to connect with you.
Dr. Pathak is Professor of China Studies at OP Jindal Global University. She is also the founder director of Department of Northeast Asian Studies at OP Jindal Global University. She is a very well-known China expert, an expert in Mandarin. She has done a doctorate in China itself and tracks China very closely. So we are going to talk about US, China, and the two-front challenge for India. So, Dr. Pathak, my first question is, what does the idea of a two-front challenge mean in today's economic and strategic context for India?
Thank you so much, Arunji. But it's a huge honor. I did my language program in China thanks to the MHRD, but my PhD is from India. So I just thought I'll just
Okay, I
mention.
stand corrected. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you so much. So, generally, when we used to think of a two-front war, it used to be more in military terms. That one front is, of course, the state sponsor of terrorism, which is Pakistan, and the other is the supporter of the state sponsor of terrorism, which is China. But in today's world, power is not just in military terms, it's become more economic in nature, which is why starting from the late 1970s also, Kuhn and Nye, they thought of a reformulation and they started saying that economics is not soft power. It is very much a component of hard power. And we now see it in full play in 2025 and 2026, wherein the economic prowess of any country is what is considered as the primary determinant for understanding its comprehensive national power. Now, India at the moment is the fastest growing major economy, as per all statistics from IMF and so on. Um, it is the world's fourth largest or the first most powerful economy, the first two being US and China. And India is closing the gap, and hopefully it'll be at number three soon. That's where we are. So it means that India has risen economically. Now, India also has the world's largest population. So the fact is that despite having a big population, the biggest population, and huge populations also bring in challenges, in addition to bringing in a lot of advantages, India has navigated its growth really well, also given the diversity. So here is where we are right now. Now in 2026, or let's go back to 2025 when Donald Trump, took oath and he became the president of the United States of America for his second term. We see that economics is now being utilized as another weapon. Now, fortunately or unfortunately, this rules based international order, which we are a part of, was actually created by the West because back in 1945, when the UN and all these Bretton Woods systems were being created, we were weak. We had just, we gained independence only in 1947. But at the moment, we still remain a part of it. We have utilized globalization to our advantage. Any breaking of this rules based international order would also mean difficulties for India. Now, unfortunately, the US itself wants to break the rules based international order, which it itself had put in so much to create. And then there's the revisionist power, which is China, which, anyways, wants to rework the whole rules based international order. Truth Social or X and sit and tweet that, thank you for your attention to this matter. I am slapping so and so tariffs, will not display his hypocrisy. Does it very silently, has been doing it for the last 10, 15, 20 years. Coming to what the PRC has done, India has a reliance on Chinese goods for critical sectors like electronics, machinery, pharmaceuticals, solar panels, and that has led to a persistent and growing trade imbalance. Now, when there is a trade imbalance, it can always be addressed by getting more goods from India. Generally, the argument which is given is that India doesn't have a comparative advantage. Okay, India is an agrarian economy, so is China, by the way. It has done wonders in manufacturing, but it is also still an agrarian economy. How Indian products don't have an equal market access? Or if you go into another segment of India's strength, which would be IT, how many IT services, IT companies of India's are there in China? Again, restrictions, lack of equal market access. India struggle to penetrate the Chinese market, non-tariff barriers, regulatory hurdles, preferential treatment for domestic firms. And since we're talking about tariffs, last year China levied 117% tariffs on Indian fertilizers. So that's also there. One has to cut through the silence because China is an information black box and fine about this last 20 years at least. And then we know what the US is actually doing. Their 25% hypocritical tariffs for buying Russian oil, while the US itself keeps increasing its trade with Russia, hosts President Putin. So, which is why, given that economics is so important, your prowess depends on economics. To simplify this, if you have the money, only then can you strengthen your border defenses, create nuclear weapons, I don't know, create sustainable development, green development, climate finance, and all sorts of things. You need the money in as simple as those terms. So we see a two-front war from US and China, and both have the aims of keeping India constrained economically. That's where we are. It's a real two-front war for India.
Dr. Pathak, let's talk a little bit more about China and then we'll come to US. So, how does China use trade and its trade policies and market access to exert pressure on countries like India? And how serious is the problem of Chinese dumping in the Indian market at present?
Right. This is a very pertinent question. So there are some, patterns, or there are some mechanisms which are very easily to trace when it comes to the PRC. And these mechanisms are of pressure through trade policies. First, what they do is that they have selective import bans, restrictions on key exports. So China can impose sudden bans or heightened regulatory scrutiny on agricultural, pharmaceutical, industrial exports from target countries. So just to give you an example, so you see, we have a playbook thanks to the PRC already. They've done every single thing which the US is doing now. This is not to justify the US's tariffs. I am just saying that they are two sides of the same coin. And it's a quota sikka, unfortunately. Then to withholding market access, approvals, and quotas, China controls entry into its market through slow walking regulatory approvals. Simple as that. Just to give an example, between 2014 to 2017, the Purim standoff, China restricted imports of Indian apples and onions, citing pesticide residue concerns. Now, India exports about 300 million in fruits and vegetables to China annually. Apples alone account for half. These restrictions caused Indian growers in Himachal Pradesh to lose up to 50% of their market share. Prices crashed domestically. Similarly, after India hosts US Vice President Kamala Harris, signaling stronger anti-China alignment with the US, China delayed approvals for new Indian dairy exporters, affecting firms like Amul. This tactic exploits India's agricultural vulnerabilities. We're talking about agriculture and dairy. US did exactly that, right? So you see, everything which Donald Trump is right now doing, either he's taking an example from the PRC, or the PRC and the US both know which the vulnerable segments of India are. And that's how they try to tighten the screw. So these are just a few examples, and there are so many more.
That's very an interesting, take that US is actually taking a leaf out of PRC's book. Let's move to US a little bit. So India has a strategic partnership with the United States, but now trade has emerged as a major friction point between India and US relations. So, how do you see, why this has happened, and do recent US tariff actions indicate just a temporary political phase, or it's a deeper shift in the American trade policy?
See, the US initially said that there is an imbalance of trade with India. And yes, India had a trade surplus with the US, but that overlooks a lot of other segments. Okay, even if we were to agree that India has a trade surplus with the US, that should have been 25%, and negotiations, etc., could have eased it out. But they also slapped 25% additional tariffs for buying Russian oil. Here's the thing: under the former administration, the former US ambassador to India, he himself said that yes, we are aware that India is purchasing Russian oil. In fact, we are okay with it, and we would want India to do it, because otherwise there would be a destabilization of oil prices. So India operates as per this. There's a change of government in the US, and within like 3 to 4 months, there is a new demand altogether. Look, this is not like a real small scale 4 members family, right? Wherein you tell your daughter or your son that, look, don't do this, do something else. It doesn't happen. It's a country of 1.4 billion. first think it out. What exactly do you want? I understand governments change in democracies, but largely the policy should be the same. Hypocritical tariffs. Then the fact, what I mentioned, they themselves want to trade with the Russians. They themselves want to pally and have great ties with the Russians. So why is it not okay for India to have ties with Russia? Right? That's hypocrisy. Then coming to that, if they don't want India to purchase oil from Russia, India doesn't even care who they want or they don't want, but just for the sake of argument, where does India buy oil from? Iran? No, 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 not okay. Venezuela? No, 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 not okay. So where exactly then? US doesn't produce that sort of oil. He might be saying drill baby drill, but that drill baby drill is not happening. So, right? So India has to care for its own self. And the fact that India has a spine in this epoch of history is not digestible by both this US and by the PRC. Now you see, for all their touting of democracies and liberal values and together, India is seen as the biggest threat, 50% tariffs on India, but not on China, not on Russia. So that's where we are. So I think this clarifies what the US really sees of India. India might be placated by the US, maybe by this administration, maybe by the next. But the fact is that 100% trust is never going to come. Every single time the US is always in the quarter which is against India. History repeats itself. 1971, US, China, Pakistan together. 2025, Operation Sindoor again. US, China, Pakistan together. So let's think of this in terms of a classroom. Unfortunately, this is my professional hazard since I'm a professor. It's say, when you come into a new classroom, you want to be friends with everyone, but slowly and steadily you put in a lot of hard work and you're working and you're slowly and steadily emerging as the most powerful and the most sanest one because you engage in hard work and you don't spend time in banter. You will quickly notice that your enemies start increasing. Two tactics might be used on you. One is that, hey, look, in standard 10 boards exam, she has done really well. So, hey, can we be friends and let's do studies together? You give me your notes. We will have a win-win, something which China does, right? One needs to see through that. Or when that doesn't really work out, how do we ensure that she doesn't get to study? So let's go to her dormitory and maybe play loud music late at night. Things like that. That's just like a simple example, but amplify it and see that's where India is right now. So both of them, which are two sides of the same coin. Now, do these recent US tariff actions, are they temporary? Are they deeper? See, there are two ways to see it. One could say they are temporary because tariffs appeal to Trump's base, the MAGA base in manufacturing heavy states, the Rust Belt, where job losses from globalization fuels populism. And unfortunately, it seems that the country is now running on populism. Polls from 2025 showed that 55% Republican voters support higher tariffs, but just 35% overall. There is, of course, economic backlash and reversibility. Tariffs have been just temporary tools historically. In fact, during Trump 1.0, he tried tariffs with the PRC, but had to back down. And then there's global pressure. Allies like EU, Canada, they have threatened WTO challenges, retaliatory tariffs, and so on. So if we see from these lenses, it could be argued that these are temporary. But my belief is this is a deeper shift in American trade policy. Trump popularized these tariffs, protectionism, and so on. But this has a cross-party support. Biden retained 90% of the Trump PR tariffs and added friendshoring via the USMCA, CHIPS Acts, and so on, subsidizing domestic semiconductor production. Look, the Democrats aren't even saying anything. For whatever good reasons, well, heavens only knows. Tariffs align with broader decoupling, and the base is all MAGA based now. Even if Trump were to go, which I don't think is happening anytime soon, MAGA base stays, so one has to pander to this. And unfortunately, college education is not increasing in the US. So keeping workers away, keeping foreign chains away, all those sorts of things would continue. My feeling is tariffs will persist into the 2030s and potentially fragmenting global trade. So this is unfortunate, but maybe every dark cloud also has a silver lining. But when push comes to shove, I think India and Indians perform really well. So it's good in a way that this pressure has been created and a lot of different shifts are happening. India is reaching out to like-minded partners who also have been targeted by both the US and China. Maybe not shown as much spine as India has, but wherever there is a complementarity, India will partner. So that's where we are. It's great we are living through this epoch of history. So I think this will be remembered for the next 100 years to come, because this signals a shift. And hopefully India can leverage it the way it has been so far and be the third pole or the rational pole out of these crazy two sides of the same coin.
Dr. Pathak, my last question is, whatever we have discussed so far, so it's pretty clear from basically, this conversation that India cannot fully rely on either US or China. So what should be the broad direction of India's economic strategy going forward?
I think we have been talking about strategic neutrality, multi-alignment, and so on, and that has really helped us. Last year when Prime Minister went to Tianjin, and there were a lot of murmurs. But why is he going to Tianjin? Why is he meeting the PRC? Because they've not really been great to us. But here's the thing: he wasn't going just to meet Xi Jinping. That wasn't just a bilateral thing. It was for the SCO. And just around the corner, Trump was putting these tariffs on us, and then there is the PRC. Now, SCO is not just China. There are a lot of other countries. So why would we not leverage the platform wherever we can leverage the platform? So, which is why the visit happened. But here's the thing, he also visited Japan before. So the message was really clear. We stand with our allies, we stand with our partners and our friends. He didn't stay on for this military victory parade, which was basically aimed at Japan, which is a time tested friend for India. But yeah, if we can leverage the SCO, why would we not do it? There are Central Asian countries. They are huge markets. We can, still explore. We have been exploring them. Russia again has been a time tested friend so far. Why would we not really do that? Hosting of the BRICS this year, we are the president. We are hosting. We are the president of the. Well, we have the presidency of the BRICS this year, so it gives us a huge platform. So wherever we can, we will leverage our partnerships, and now it's BRICS plus countries. So historically, maybe our outreach to African countries, Latin American countries, Central Asian countries hasn't been that huge, but now there is this situation. Even other Western Asian countries, we have an FTA with Oman, for example, or the FTA with New Zealand. We didn't think of these things earlier. So this is the right way forward because we have two completely irrational and illogical powers at two ends of the spectrum. Middle powers like India, sane voices like India will have to find the partnerships based on national interest first. And I think this has just taught us that do not trust anyone. So that's the great thing. This is going to continue, and it's going to be a reconfiguration of the global order from here on. So, but here's where we are. So I think so far we've been doing well, and touch wood, this should continue.
Thank you, Dr. Pathak. It's always a privilege and a pleasure to host you, and it's an honor to host you. You share such deep insights and you break down such complex issues in such simple terms. So once again, thank you so much for taking time out from your busy schedule and sharing your thoughts with us. And thank you, viewers, for watching. Thank you, Dr. Pathak.
Thank you, Arunji, and thank you, viewers.